it's Kelly Leger here along with Amber Buto and Hosanna Arceri. We're here in Studio One at For the One Studios for our podcast, Set Life. So real quick, everybody. So my favorite part of directing, because I am a director, is obviously, well, I love the creative. I love telling a story. I love doing it in a creative way. I get this visual medium. It's not just about dialogue. How can I say it with as few words as possible? That's my favorite thing. All right, go producer.
Okay, so my favorite thing as a producer would be seeing it from an idea, concept, to fruition on the big screen. I love putting all those pieces together and all the details of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Indie filmmaker?
Man, I just love bringing a shot and truly getting a good color on it. I mean, to me, it's like painting the canvas again.
You're so good at that too.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
I truly enjoy that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'd devote more time to being a colorist, but yeah, I mean, that's just a big passion. Like, oh, the color's so right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Spoken like a true artist. The shot itself. What does
Yeah.
that look
Yeah.
like? Well, today we're going to be hopping right into our topic, which is using what you got, starting with what you have. What do you have in your hand, and how can you get started with what you have now? Not waiting for a future date when you got it all put together. What can you do right now? And I guess we're just going to jump into this with Hosanna. And we got Hosanna on our show today, indie filmmaker. Every one of us gets started with something, especially if you're in the indie film market.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got started. What did that look like? What did you start with, and what did you do with it?
Man, I started pretty much with kit everything. I mean, it was kit body, kit lenses, and I'm not talking like just, kit in the sense of, it's still cinema grade.
You mean
it's
not
like,
a Kit Kat?
Yeah.
Define
Kats
Like, I mean, okay, like if you're not in the industry, you're thinking Kit Kat right now.
Define
Just
that for
saying.
people. What is that?
Kit Kat bars. Yeah, you had kit lenses or the basic lenses, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you go to Best Buy, you buy a camera, it's got lenses that are there. It's just simple glass, or a kit camera is just like the basic one. You're not really looking for something that's crazy high end. It's like, I want a camera for Christmas that shoots. I don't know what it does, but it shoots, kind of thing. So just your basic DSLR.
Okay.
I started on that. Gosh, man, I think the first camera I ever started shooting was either photo and video, but it was like a Rebel T5 with some weird tiny lens on the front.
Yep.
And man, it was just making it work, trying to learn the camera and figure out what it could do. And in the meantime, I was trying to figure out what I could do with it. But yeah, I mean, I think the bigger thing is just maximizing your potential to grow with it.
Sure.
I'm only as good as I can work with my tools.
Did you say you started with that camera? Mm-hmm. Did you just go buy the camera? Did you know somebody that had a camera? Because you didn't really go to school for this, and so it was just like a passion you had to like, what's that thing do? And tell a story with it.
Yeah.
And you bought a camera. What'd you do?
I grew up being a baseball player, and I remember my mom always taking photos at games, and I mean, she would even edit stuff in video. I don't even know what software she was working on.
Go Mom.
And Mom got a lot of good stuff. Mom was great.
Yeah.
And I remember for Christmas one year, I believe I was like a senior in high school or freshman in college, right around that time period. And I asked Mom for Christmas, I was like, hey, man, I want a camera. Like, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
I've been doing it on my phone, bumped up to an iPhone, was able to take pictures. And I was like, I want a camera. And so that was my first camera, was just a Christmas camera, DSLR, T whatever Rebel with some kit lenses, and, just started shooting on that. I think I was so excited that day. I don't even remember if I could turn it on because I didn't have any charged batteries. It's like, I got a camera, but it doesn't turn on.
Yeah. Wow. And look at you now. I mean, you go from a Christmas present to shooting all kinds of content, and I think that's really why we started with an episode like this and looking into an episode like this, because we really wanted to encourage other people to start with what they have. Mm-hmm. What do they have at hand, and then grow from there.
Right.
I mean, it's to create content, an iPhone. I mean, everybody's got an iPhone at this point. How do you tell a story? How do you grow in seeing through those lenses to develop and tell stories and content with that?
It's like, really, it's about taking people's excuses away. Because we do that to ourselves. We always like, well, when I have this much money, when I have this camera, when I have this, when I have that. we really don't have any excuses in the day and age we live in.
Yep.
We have access to so many things in the palm of our hands. You can do something with what you got. You know, I remember when I first started shooting, like I wouldn't have considered myself a director. I hadn't shot any commercials. I mean, it was nothing. I just moved out to California pursuing this dream, this Hollywood dream. And I had to make money. I had to make some money. So I started shooting weddings.
Yeah.
Guess how many weddings I had shot before that? 0. I'd never shot a wedding before, but I'm like, man, I gotta make money. I gotta do this. How am I gonna do it? And so I thought, well, okay, I have a camera, and I've not done a wedding, but I know I have a friend who has a lot of beautiful friends.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
bingo.
That's something I have access to. I'm like, I know somebody who has a really nice house.
Yeah.
So I have a nice house. Now I have a location and I have talent. I'm like, I'm going to do this. So I went to...
Sounds like a director talking.
Yes,
exactly.
So for me, it was the people that I had access to. It wasn't even the best camera. And so I went to this really nice house, and I had all these, in my mind, were models. And everybody had like a wedding dress or a prom dress or something they could use. It looked like they were something fancy. And I went and I shot a bunch of fake weddings.
Wow.
A bunch of mock weddings, people at an altar, people doing a father-daughter dance, everything I could think of. That, and I knew how to edit a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I took all this footage and I put together the most emotional 4-minute highlight reel of like the father-daughter dance, and I had it dissolve from like a little girl and her father to the bride. So it was so emotional with the music.
This is so director.
Yeah,
this
right?
is so director right now.
Yeah,
he built a pitch deck.
We're gonna have the whole. We're gonna have the whole story. His whole storyline of all the directing.
But every single potential bride that I showed that to, with her and her mom, would just cry.
I need it.
Never shot a wedding. They're like, we want you to do our wedding.
Yep.
So in the first 6 months of trying to book weddings, I booked like 100 of them.
Wow.
And I'd never done a wedding before, and only had one camera. And I'm like, and I'm selling, I'm like, 3 camera packages. And so I booked myself out for like 8 months, but they would all give me a deposit. So I would take that money and I went and bought a bunch of cameras. And so before you know it, I'm using what I had though.
Yeah.
And I just went out and I did the best thing I knew how to do, and it worked.
Yeah.
And so I never stopped. Now, after the first year doing weddings, I never wanted to do a wedding again, but but I knew I could do it, and it was a springboard for everything else that I would do, because that's what was in my hands to do. With the whole wedding vein, I'll just say this, this analogy would come up a lot. It was trying to help people maximize their budget with their wedding or something. And it's like, well, if you can't afford flowers at your wedding, what do? You get married in a garden. And so the flowers are already there. So the location is already there. So it's already beautiful around you. Yeah. What can you do? Yeah. What do you have access to right now? Do you know somebody who has a little family plane? Well, that's cool. Not everybody has a plane that you could access shots that way, or get shots around it. What can you access? What in your life is unique that somebody else would add all this value, to what you do?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's just taking that risk.
Yeah.
Right? It's the passion you have inside of you to do something creative.
It's huge.
Right? Starting with, okay, we're all watching these mega films. We all have cell phones in our hands to tell stories now, but everybody's wanting to start with the mega.
Right.
Just starting with what you have and refining that, like, what is it that you like about the industry? What is it that you like about the camera? Do you like working the camera? Do you like editing with the phone? Do you like just telling the story? Do you like finding locations and people and building the story? And then you got to have cameras to do that.
I do like
so
doing
it's kind of seeing what you have and then what your talents are and marrying those two things together. As a producer, it's like you don't. I mean, I did get a camera when I was younger. I do have a minor in photography. Thank you. I know.
I didn't even know that.
Well, see there, you learn something new every day. Look how long we've been sitting next to each other and didn't even know that. Maybe I shouldn't say that, because no, I'm not going to ever work with one of them.
All right, cat's out of the bag.
But yeah, I mean, it's being able to just take that step, that one step. For me, it was like I didn't know anything about putting films together and stuff, but I was like, you know what? I've got a story. I know we need to shoot. I know how I can write a story. I mean, and I just hired around and went and made it, or get a group of friends that have different talents and go and make a little story. But that one little story that I went and created has built upon to me sitting here doing feature films and things like that. So that's the concept of starting with the one thing you have. You think, oh, this is nothing, right? But it is something. That nothing ends up being a lot of something, you know, and having the courage to do that.
You made me think of the saying that you have everything you need in your hand right now in the form of a seed. And so you think that, like, you know, that took a lot of like passion to drive past what you didn't feel like you had to start jumping into your first feature, to jump into whatever business. You'd have to have to want it enough for all your ducks not to be in a row. Just to like, I'm doing this. I just got to get in it and go. And you do find out that, you know, again, another saying, these things are popping in my mind. You know, you don't have to be great to start. But you do have to start to be great. At some point, you just got to go, here's what I got, and I'm going to use it. And I can perfect it as I go. And the more that I go,
no doubt,
I get better.
I mean, like, there are so many people who talk about how many times they failed before they achieved.
Totally.
And you can't be afraid of failure. You've got to look at it as experience. That the experience that leads you to that exact moment, to the greatness that's ahead.
That's true.
You know, I'd watched Steven Spielberg's documentary, which is really good, and he played with a camera and did all kinds of creative shots, and he actually invented certain shots.
That's true.
So if he hadn't had the curiosity and the guts to go and do those things, we wouldn't have some of the angles and the cinematography and stuff we have today without his creativity. So trust your creativity. Trust inside of you what's inside that's giving you that passion, giving you that prompting. You know, and the cool thing about art is, yes, school is good. I think, I mean, I think education is great, and I think we have great educations. But I also say there is a God-given creativity in each of us little creators to tell a story, see it. I mean, Hosanna, we talk all the time about you saying that you see in frames. I think that's so great. You know, that's his. You were always telling us a whole grand story about how we're going to get all these things together and how we're going to fit together. And that's also the beauty of this, to us all working here at the studio together. You know, you kind of have all these facets. In your circle, not only can you tangibly look at what you've got in your hand, like a camera or a friend who has, look at all the people that you have around you. How can you pull from some talents from people around you?
That's right, because there's a good chance that all those people around you also want to be doing something. You can pool all those skill sets together and actually end up putting something together that's actually really cool. I mean, we've done that at the studio.
You're going to grow with the community that you surround yourself with. You know, I mean, that was one of the things I did early on was, I mean, something as simple, I mean, your favorite YouTuber is part of your community if you're willing to learn from them. You know, so it was things like that, like, okay, hey, I got this little camera that I have no idea how to work. Well, let me learn how to shoot manual. Let me learn some of these things. And you go to those people who you admire, or you're like, well, his work's really good. I want my work to look like that guy's work. How do I get there? You just learn. I think that's one of the toughest things for young creators in our industry, but just creatives in general, whether you're a photographer, a videographer, painter, I mean, you name it, a creative heart, is they got to run through that wall of, I don't have time to do this. Well, no, you actually should have a lot of time, because if you don't invest that time into like wanting to just take the little steps, right? It's a long journey and it takes a lot of little steps, but man, every one of those little steps is huge to getting to the point where like, oh, my work now is like, I like where it's at. I think that's my biggest one that I notice that I'm always checking myself on. Like, I will finish a project, deliver to the client, and instantly I'm like, oh man, I could have done it better. It's like we're so hard on ourselves as creatives, you know, and that's the wall of like, oh, my gear's not good enough, therefore my work's not good enough. It's like, well, no, it's really good. Like, you know, everyone else had a starting point too. You know, everyone else had to go from step 1 to step 10, you know, and go through all, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. They didn't skip any numbers. There's no skipping numbers when it comes to hard work and learning.
For sure.
You know, I think that's one of the biggest ones that creatives will run into is, man, I just don't have time to do it. And so they try and find the shortcuts, you know, like, but the worst part is those shortcuts just lead you into rabbit holes of like, oh, I got to correct what I skipped anyway. You know, I can't tell how many times I would like go in to learn editing and I'd try skipping something. And it's like, by the time I'm done, like, darn, if I would just learn to do this the right way, I would have been in a much better place now.
And I'm all for the continuous improvement model. Now you just start. Like when I first started shooting, I would look at it and be like, that's not exactly how I wanted it to be. The picture I saw here, it doesn't exactly look like it on the screen. Why doesn't it look that way? And then I would start learning about lenses. Well, it doesn't have that, the depth of field. I started learning about depth of field, or what was, you just learn more as you go. And the next project, I would make sure I was applying, that lens technique or that look to the project. And then you perfect it again. And you're like, well, the next one, I wanted the camera to have more movement. It didn't have any movement. I don't have a variety of shots. It's not tight and wide. And so every step you're just perfecting. But don't let your lack of not knowing everything stop you. Like you just got to go.
We're experimenting with stuff too. I mean, like one of the funniest ones that went back to shooting weddings is, we can get these awesome lens filters that cost a lot of money when I was coming up, and like, I'm not going to be able to afford that just yet. I want a little baby camera. And so, you can get an effect from pulling a glass off one of the tables and shooting through the glass.
Totally.
I can't tell me how many times I've done that, and the people in the room are like, what are you doing? And then they get the video and it's like, oh, I like that. That was really cool. So it's like, well, hey, I'm not buying that piece of equipment, but I can still get the results if I go try what I think will look good. And, you'll find things that don't work, but at least I know, hey, that's not the look I'm going for, but it would work for something else. Or maybe it works and it's like, oh, I'm going to use that every time now. So there's a bunch of even just options for that out there, whether it's bouncing light off tin foil or, you name it. It's just a matter of like, am I willing to go try it? Am I willing to just go do it?
And not be afraid to just go and do it. Like, what are people going to say? That's a big thing. Or are people going to like it? Or it's not going to be very good? Or it doesn't matter. You're learning, right? I mean, nobody's winning the next Academy Award off the first film they have ever made, right? I mean, you are just taking the chance on yourself. Trust in your gut, the creativity that you have, and cultivate that. I think one of the football coaches the other day said, God-given talent can take you so far. But putting your God-given talent with your disciplines, with learning, with the failures, with all of your experiences together produces excellent and next level. Right? So you have to remember that. You're not going to start out as a pro player. You're not going to start out as a professional. Know that if you want to get there, there is no shortcut to there. You have to start with what you got. You do.
You can't get stuck in paralysis by analysis. People analyze it so much it paralyzes them. They never start because it's all the things they don't know. I did go to film school for a season, and I wanted to go because I had already been shooting. I'd already been doing things, but I felt like I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, what am I missing out on? It was the fear of like, what do I not know? I don't know.
That
what
was
I don't
me
know.
too.
So what do I do?
For sure.
And what I learned as I went, I'm like, nobody knows anything. I mean, everybody starts where they start. You get yourself on a production set, in a couple weeks, you're learning as much as you learn the language, you learn it. It happens really quick. It's just getting in the fight. It's not, get it. Don't stay on the bleachers. You see the game going on, jump in. Don't worry about what you don't know. Find your green, find your rookie. Who cares? Just go, make mistakes, figure it out, learn, move on. So.
And then even pulling in people to do it with you. I've found I've learned so much quicker when it's another greenhorn next to me. It's like, hey, well, we got to figure this out. We both need this information, you know?
Sure.
And you actually bounce the ideas off each other, and it's like, oh, I didn't think like you thought. That's a good idea. I'll use that too. Here's another nugget for you to try. So then you just actually, it's like accelerated growth at that point.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's such a give back, right? When you're able to take that risk, take what you have been given, and go produce something from it, there's just a good feeling about that. I mean, at the end of the day, you might be like, whoa, okay, we missed the mark on that a little bit. Like, maybe that was, but you're like, we did it. We did it. I mean, the first short film I made, I mean, I flew, I wouldn't advise this, but I flew halfway across the world, Africa, to do this. And, before I left, I was like, I don't know, I just know I want it to sound good. I need to look good. I know we got to have a story to tell. And we had to write some things down. And that was put some people around me that knew more than me. And I think that's important to try to find when you're starting with what you have. Take what you have and then go find somebody that you can add value to their life. Like, how can I add value to you while I learn from you at the same time?
Right.
Seek out somebody that's doing it, that you can partner with, that you can help. I mean, my gosh, I'm like, here, I'll hold, what you want me to hold this boom? What did you want me to do? Okay, and I'm holding all kinds of things. I was on top of a car at one point. We were on top of a car trying to get an interview because we wanted in Africa, we wanted the sunset in the background, and we couldn't get high enough, so we were crawling on top of the car, and I'm like hanging off the car, holding on to the thing. Yeah, I mean, you just try to get involved however you can. And you try to surround yourself with people that have been doing it and add value to them as you're learning from them.
It's true. The old saying, and I'll kind of correct that a little bit, but is, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean don't be authentic.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean fake it like I'm lying to everybody, like I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, no.
It just means move forward, smile, nod, move forward. And you might be on a production set and they say, hey, go grab a pancake. And you're like, go grab a pancake? Where's an IHOP? No, it's not. It didn't mean a pancake. No, you just, what do?
Bring the syrup.
You don't worry about it. Yeah, you don't
like, that's strange. Why is he wanting a pancake right now? I'm pretty sure we're in like a major
lunch.
Yeah, right.
No, you look it up on your phone real quick. Or the next time you come back, he means, the apple box that looks smashed like a pancake. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
And so the fake it till you make it, stay humble. And in my mind, Amber, to be honest with you, you are such a perfect depiction of this. Like, I've never watched anybody learn faster in an industry, especially in ours as a producer, who would jump all in, to everything. Go to every film festival, talk to every producer, learn everything she needs to know, and immediately, just like a super fast learn. What would take people decades, you've learned, just like that. And that was not by accident.
No, it's intentional.
Very intentional.
It's very intentional. And well, thank you. I should say that. That was nice. But yeah, it's a real intentional thing. People ask me all the time, how'd you get into this?
Yeah.
Because I didn't come from this industry. And I just said, I just make a decision in my life when I want to do something to just jump in both feet. All of us can swim. Well, for the most part, I think we can mostly swim, right? But
next episode,
teaching to swim, right? But no, you just jump in and you start kicking and flailing and trying to stay afloat at the same time, learning to watch those that are around you and be humble to the fact that you don't know everything is huge. To learn everything, right? You can't go in saying, "Oh, I know everything."
Right.
I know everything. So you look cool.
Yeah.
There is no money in looking cool.
Very far.
No, it's not. It's not going to get you far. So it's going in saying, "Yeah, I'm new to this, and I'm here to help in any way I can, and listen and learn, and don't overtalk and don't pretend that you know. Humbly approach something that you're trying to learn." And believe it or not, there's some really kind people in this world.
Yeah.
There really are. And everybody enjoys, I tell my kids this, everybody enjoys being around somebody who's grateful.
Yeah.
Somebody who's appreciative and thankful. So be that in the scenario, at least if you're going to go and be around others. Be appreciative for what they know and what they've taught you, and don't be arrogant. Don't, try to act like you know everything. Just absorb and learn. And eventually you'll get to a place where you're like, okay, I think I know a little something.
I can follow this conversation.
Yes, like I
just wanted
understand.
the C47 and the pancake and the hi-hat, and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I kind of like it. It's amazing. Yeah. So, being able to just jump into something and really humbly approach it and learn it. I kept saying, I have been drinking, y'all have heard this a lot. I'm drinking with the fire hose right now, getting a little blown over by it.
Sure.
But, just trying to consume all of the terms and the equipment. And there is so much that goes into this industry. That's part of the reason we had such a passion about starting this podcast, was to give a little behind the scenes, a little bit dive into it, which was one of my problems, was where can I go find practical conversations to hear these terms, to hear what all goes on a set? That's why our set is set up like it is. You see all of this it takes to make this production.
Sure.
most of this is not here just for looks. A lot of it is here for a practical purpose. And we have experts behind the camera that are making us look this good. Thank you. Thank you. So, there's a lot that goes into the industry. There's a lot that goes into learning what you want to do, but just start with what you have in your hand. Start with what you've got. Learn that and build from there. Tent pole, like we say in the industry, tent pole around yourself means place people around you that are ahead of the game in you. So that's you can learn from them, but also help add value to them.
That's right. It's
and
so
I think adding because you'll eventually get to the spot you want to get to that you were intending. For me, it was I don't want to shoot on a kit camera anymore. I want my look to look like this. I want it to get to a certain spot. Yeah. And you'll get to that spot probably a little quicker than you're realizing it, especially if you're on track. I'm just dedicated to it. But it's when you get there to still continue to be hungry for it as well. Even though I got to a point where I'm on a better camera and on a better lens, I learned how to edit. It's well, there's still more to go. There's still a lot further you can continue going. But if I just settle in that pocket, then, I was coming out of that season for a minute too, doing I'm really happy. I got to shoot weddings. My work looks good. I'm shooting weddings. But then I'm just stuck only shooting weddings for so long until okay, I got to take another growth step.
Good.
To get out of that. So it's
true.
seasonal of I'm hungry, I'm dedicated, I'm pushing.
Yep.
I've achieved something nice. Let me enjoy, as the athletes would always say, I'm enjoying the win, the champagne and the plane, but then Monday comes around, it's a whole nother game. Enjoy it when you reach phase 1 and you've accomplished something and you've grown, but continue to be hungry to try and okay, now what next? Maybe now I can purchase that piece of gear. You're always talking on where's the business side of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think the creatives are in that same boat of, the business side is so important to one, when you start growing and getting better, it's to charge your worth, charge your value, charge what you've invested in yourself. You're worth that, but also reinvest in yourself too. Yeah.
Good. That's really good. And I think starting with what you have, look at, okay, if you can take pictures like Kelly so creatively did, go get, friends and other people to come. I actually just heard a good story the other day about, a young kid who was going to produce their first short film, and he had been given a small budget from winning this film festival. And he had the opening scene of his film was a restaurant full of people. So I'm watching it with him, and I'm like, stop right there. Stop right there. Yeah. He paused the film, and I was like, where did you get all those people?
How did you do that?
How did you get? I
know your
budget,
talent,
and I know that's a lot. That's production value. That's a lot. And he said to me, "Oh, those are all my church friends." He goes, "I promised him a hot meal, and I went to location and was like, hey, to the restaurant owner, can we just use one of the hours that you're really dead? And I'm going to promise you that we're going to bring in the whole restaurant full, buy everybody a lunch or a dinner,
so good,
and shoot."
So brilliant. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
No-brainer.
Of course, the restaurant owner's like, yeah, for sure, you can shoot a film in here, and you're going to do a whole, it's my slowest hour, right? So, again, using what he had. He had church friends. He knew a guy that owned a restaurant, a small restaurant, and just went in. Again, that took guts, though, of trusting yourself to go step out and ask that restaurant owner, ask your friends, hey, would you... People want to be involved more than you think they do.
Right.
Even if it's a smaller thing, you've got a friend that you have one camera. You're like, hey, do you have a prom dress? Can I go take pictures of you in your prom dress? Because I need that on my website. Right. I need an action shot. I need to build a portfolio.
Right. Yeah.
That is using what you've got, and those, but it is going to take some courage.
Yep. It is. Wow. All people can do is say no. You just have to start somewhere and ask. And like you said, I think there's a lot more people who say yes than we realize. I mean, so if you are, it doesn't matter if you're in an advertising agency and you're wanting to move into just shooting production. If you are, have never held a camera and you need to start somewhere, and so you start making music videos, or you start doing weddings, or whatever you do. I think our encouragement to you today is just step out. Take what you got. You have something. You have something in your hand in the form of a seed, and that thing can grow into something. Don't think about what you don't have. Think about what you do have.
Yeah.
And just start with what you got, and you're going to be great. You know, we don't know you, and we believe in you. We believe in people. We see it happen all the time, and so start with what you got. And this has been Amber and Kelly and Hosanna here on Set Life.